very much, Deb, for that intro. Welcome, everyone. Lovely to see you all. Hi, I am Leo Havemann. I am a program development advisor at UCL since about a year and a half. So there didn't used to be any such a thing at UCL until then. And now my colleague Karen and I have been doing it for a while. We've just about figured out what it is. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, well, I'm Karen Shackleford-Cesare, and like Leo, I'm a program development advisor, and we're in a small team within the academic development unit at UCL, which is called UCL Arena Center. We've been engaged with doing program development as devised, I think, by Professor Simon Walker, who brought us over from digital education into his team at that time, a year and a bit ago. So this is what we're doing.
So, so we thought we'd give a quick overview of this. The program development unit, sometimes we call ourselves unit, sometimes team. We're a sort of subgroup within the wider academic development group. And the idea was that we wanted to provide some support, some encouragement, and some inspiration to people that were developing brand new programs in a more of a consistent way. So that's kind of the consistency of our title. So in other words, having a bit more of a structured process than just, well, there's a whole bunch of forms that you have to fill in. Of course, there are a whole bunch of forms that they have to fill in, and that is one of the kind of, I guess, one of the challenges of our work is to try and help do things which are going to help people with the processes of putting together all the paperwork that they need to complete in order to go through the processes to have their new programs approved. And part of the reason that people, I think, will say that their engagement with us has been worthwhile is if they feel that we have helped them achieve that process. But we also wanted them to think a bit outside of just what's on the forms. So we're sort of trying to do a bit of both things. So some key things that we offer in this service are a program design workshop, which is kind of quite an initial stage of it, people saying, we've got this idea for a new program, and it's kind of a bit more embryonic. Usually, they might come to us at different times. And then we also tend to work with people who are at a more advanced stage, usually post-approval, when the powers that be have said, yeah, great, do this program, we want you to do it. Then we tend to do a learning design workshop with them, which is the famous ABC workshop that was developed by our colleagues Clive Young and Natasha Perovich. And that was a kind of a piece of our work that we brought with us from digital education. So in a sense, it's because we were doing that kind of learning design work with people that they were interested in moving us over to start doing this program development work. But one of the interesting things about this for us has been how not very digital our work has become, and how we feel like something is missing. Like it was almost as if there was a sense that if you bring in these digital people to do this, then they'll automatically be able to infuse some sort of good digitalness into what people are going to produce. But actually, what we find is you're working with people where you have very kind of short, you have a very short space of time when you have their attention and can get them to do stuff. And they're concerned about what is the next hurdle they have to pass. And in the program design workshop stage, and we also potentially offer other activities to them at that time, but usually they don't want to do a whole bunch of stuff. They want to do that workshop and they want to get the paperwork in and get the thing for approval. And so it's like, this is essentially what we are thinking with you today in this workshop is how can we make useful early intervention to think about digital at that early stage of the program, so that it isn't only later on when they come and do an ABC workshop with us and we're starting to do some learning design around the actual modules that they're planning to develop into full pieces of teaching and learning, that we say, and what kind of, what are the digital elements and why would you be using them? Because in some ways, at the stage, when we get to that stage, a lot of their decisions have already been made. So I hope that that's kind of putting it in terms that are clear enough about what our dilemma is. So yeah, so we kind of mentioned already about this, that previously we were members of the digital education. We were a team called the advisory team, and that was basically what it sounds like. People wanted advice about anything and everything when we meant to know it. And I remember one day I sent Karen a message saying, "Oh, how's work today?" And she said, "It's the usual. It's like trying to mow an infinite field." And that was really what that job felt like. It could be anything. It was about everything. And so to move into doing something that was more focused and more kind of a bit more specific, and not necessarily all about anyone and everyone's needs, but more about thinking about the particular, working with particular groups on supporting them, was quite exciting. But turns out it's not as easy as it sounds. We thought like, oh, it'd be great, we'd only focus on these things. But there do continue to be challenges here. But we wanted to thinking in terms of this curriculum design. It doesn't tend to be a formal activity, and there is little support, formal or informal, provided at most higher education institutions. We wanted to make sure that we are doing this and not just helping people do their paperwork. So, sorry, I'm just realizing that I've said already some of the things that are on these slides. So we were just trying to make sure that we are presenting the opportunity for people to think in the initial stages about the overall overview of their program, and then later work with us on more of a classic learning design of actual modules. And so we normally do this, we meet with them initially, just kind of scope it out. Program design workshop, maybe that can be more than one. They can have a session with students who do a quality review of the documentation that they've written, which the students are not necessarily from their discipline, but they are trained in looking for what they think a good program proposal is meant to look like, and ask them some tricky questions. We sometimes use a tool known as the chart tool, which is sort of similar in some ways, but more of a light touch thing, I guess, to the tester process, if you're familiar with that. So we're looking at what's all the assessment that you've got across your program, and when is it happening? What are the different kinds? And so that's sort of looking at the variety, and also at the bunching, and are things happening, or like you're making all the students do all these assessments in the same week and things like that, and trying to avoid some pitfalls there. And so we also have various kinds of potential activities that we can do, that we offer, but people don't necessarily take up, around taking deeper dives into areas. So like more thinking about assessment or employability, UCL's connected curriculum, which is all around kind of connecting learning with research, and thinking about students as researchers, and sustainability, other kinds of topics that we would like to work with people on. But usually they want to do more of the core activities, and kind of, because everybody is very busy. So this is sort of a typical pathway through the kind of process. Not every single program does, it's always a little bit different in every case, but somebody might think, I'm going to do a new program, I have a kind of pre-workshop meeting with us. They put together an initial, like, very kind of quick thing about the finance and business case, and that's a new stage. So they have to kind of clear that. They're supposed to clear that before they come and do program design even. And And sometimes we feel like actually the program design is kind of the part where you're going to help them to figure out what the program is, and might have been useful before they are doing that, but it's, that's tricky. Then they're doing paperwork after they've done program design with us, might have student quality review there, paperwork approved, might do more program design activities with us here, but not necessarily. Program is approved, now they might do learning design. Usually they are quite keen on doing learning design and maybe chart tool while they're doing the module design and development. So, yeah, so it's that ABC workshop stage. As you can see, this is quite far along in the process when we do most of our work around thinking about the digital and blended kind of aspects of the learning that they're designing. The paperwork will tend to define, not in great detail, but in some detail, what's all the assessment, for example. So then you kind of come to that stage and they're like, well, we've already decided some of these things, and it's kind of tricky to unpick it now because we'd have to put things back through and say, we may do a module amendment and all that. And I don't know about where other people work, but that process is very, very long. And they're like, we really don't want to amend. And we kind of understand that. So I'm going to hand over to Karen to explain our program design workshop 1, kind of the way that the classic version that we currently do, because what we're ultimately thinking is how do we insert some digital thinking into that workshop. I'll hand over to you, Karen.
Okay. Right, so our program design workshop 1, basically we've had a pre-meeting with a program team, or typically we have a pre-meeting with the program initiator and or program lead, and maybe somebody else from their faculty or department who's closely affiliated with the program that's being thought about. So they tell us at that meeting what their vision is for the program, what their thinking is, where they're at, if they've started looking at what we call the PMAP documentation or not. And based on what they say, we offer them our program design workshop 1, which is slightly kind of like a tapas menu. We have a kind of folder with activities, and we can slip activities in or out depending on what ground they may have already covered before they meet with us as a larger program team. So imagine yourselves as a program team, and you're sitting around tables, possibly related to what you teach or people that you've taught with in the past, or, but anyway, you're a jumble of people who are going to be working on the same program. So in the room, we would have the program initiator or lead. As I said, they're absolutely essential to the process. Then we have academic staff, who may be people who teach on modules that are likely to be pulled into the program or might have something to do with new modules to be developed for that program. We might bring in the departmental administrator or somebody who's a program administrator to give some feedback on some of the things around running a program that the academics themselves may not be aware of, but will impact on how they design the program. You might bring in their learning technologist if the department or faculty has one, and all our faculties now have a person called a faculty learning technology lead, and they're welcome to come. Sometimes a careers consultant is available, possibly their faculty's marketing guru. So we've got all this kind of knowledge and background at tables in the room. So in the groups, and the groups are quite arbitrary, we ask people to summarize their program vision in 50 words. This is where you kind of separate the sheep from the goats, because you often find that whereas the initiator has one vision, she or she may or may not have been particularly successful in conveying that vision to everyone else in the room. So you can end up with some images which do not reflect what the lead thought the program was about. And so that's an opportunity to start discussing, well, okay, what is the program about really? Can you go back?
Sorry, I just thought we should show the actual.
Yeah, and yeah, so then we go on to, so the first page was a vision. This is a sort of copy of the slides and a mix with we also give them a workbook so they can write down their thinking as we go through the discussions. So with regards to the vision, we then say, well, okay, what are the key elements of this program that you want prospective students to know? What are the adjectives so that will characterize it? So they choose the top 10 in groups again, and then at the end of the discussion within the group, everybody presents their top 10 at each table, and then they decide what the ultimate top 10 are going to be going forward, and that can be used in marketing. So here we'd have the top 10 on display here. Next. The next discussion that we have is, what do we know about our students, or in this case, prospective students? So we discuss here, who are we actually aiming to bring into this program? And what are they coming in with? What's their background? What do we want them to know on the way out? How will we have transformed them? What will prerequisites be? And this can be a good conversation to have both with the marketing person, the careers person, and all the other people in the room, because you can find again that not everybody was thinking of the same group of people coming into the program. We had one workshop where I asked the question, so with regards to widening participation, how are you thinking of bringing more people onto this program? And then the program initiator said, we're not worried about widening participation. Somebody else in the group said, oh, yes, we are. Of course, we want to widen participation. Yeah, we need to bring more people in. So, okay, so how are you going to do that? So I said, well, what are your prerequisites? And this went through a list, and the list included A-level chemistry. And then someone piped up, why did they need A-level chemistry? And everybody sort of went silent and had a moment's thought. And then they said, well, they don't really need A-level chemistry. So why are we saying that that's a prerequisite? Okay, we'll scrap A-level chemistry. But there are lots of things that could have just gone through automatically without any thought going into it. So just getting them in a room to talk about very simple, basic questions that everybody thought the answer was already known, can actually reveal that many things have not been thought through and now can be, thought about and decided. So we have that discussion. And then the next one is what's distinctive about the program. This is another one where the marketing person is quite useful, kind of because they can give an insight as to whether the institution is already offering programs of this ilk, because we don't want to be stealing students from each other. Whether the name given to the program has any traction in the marketplace. We had one program where they were doing something with brain science, and the marketing person said, well, you have to have neuroscience in the name. Brain science is not anything that anyone's Googling anywhere, so they'll never find you. So neuroscience had to be in the name, and I think there was some displays about whether it was applied or something else, and which word had to come first, and so on. So little things like that were that the academics probably, who cares? But the marketing person said, oh yeah, you care. If you want students, you care. So things like that. So why the program? Why now? Are you looking to fill a gap in the market? Or is this same old that multiple institutions are doing. Are similar programs being offered by competitors? What is going to make the program stand out if that's the case? Is there something unique about it? Do you have some sort of placement? Is it a new way of teaching? How are you going to attract students to the program? Do you have any connections with prospective employers? And here your careers person in the room can contribute to what they know. Is there issues around overseas students? What proportion of them are you hoping to attract? What promotions are you going to use? What channels are you going to use to promote this program? And all of those kinds of questions. And then we go on to possibly how the program is structured. This will probably look kind of familiar, if not the diagram. The idea is how many modules will students do in term 1, 2, and 3? How many credits will those modules have? And if it's an undergraduate program, that will have multiple years. If it's a postgraduate program, it will probably have 1 year. There's a typical thing, though some master's programs do have 18 months or 2 years. So there's some discussion about that. If they're bringing in modules that already exist, where will they be placed? Do they have permission to use modules from other departments in their program? New modules, how many of those do they plan to develop? Teaching staff, do they have enough? How many numbers? All of those questions around the practicality of actually making this program land in the real world. And then we look at program outcomes. This tends to become homework, and then we might meet again or exchange emails or be on Teams to discuss kind of what the program learning outcomes are going to be. Those categories are sort of loosely based on Bloom's work and the work of some other authors and researchers on kind of categorizing outcomes. And it's something of an art to actually write good program level learning outcomes. And we have a workshop in that as well if they want help. Some programs are going to be accredited, so the accrediting body may already have established what the program learning outcomes need to be. And then we can piggyback on those, and they might want more help with breaking that down into module learning outcomes and so on. So we can help with that. And then we have a bit of time for coming up with an action plan led by the program initiator or lead as to what the next steps need to be. And then they can assign them to members of the program development team. Then we encourage them to give us some feedback on how the workshop went for them, and whether we let them know what other activities they can do as follow-ups. And then we let them go after 3 hours of hard work and argument. We also give them lunch. Right, so over to you.
So thanks, Karen. So it's at this point now that we've welcomed you to our world, that we want to ask you to think yourselves into our shoes, and help us devise an activity that helps teams to think about how to design intentionally blended programs. So in other words, one of the tensions that we think quite often happens when we don't think about this early on is that people will default to a version of blended, which is actually where you have technology enhanced admin more than technology enhanced learning as such. And that's kind of what we are hoping to kind of steer them away from early on. So thinking about who our workshop attendee is when they're coming to workshop 1, they're really thinking about the big picture. They don't know the details of exactly which modules probably they have, or what the content is, or what the assessment's going to be. they haven't done the learning design to design the modules yet, and they may not really have heard of some of the ideas that we introduced in there about there being 6 different learning types that are based on Laura Lard's conversational framework. So some of this is kind of key knowledge that will help them in thinking about blended learning later on, but they're not kind of ready to do that stage yet. And we might have the ones that really only want to use technology to support the admin processes, because that might just be what they've been used to in the things that they've been involved with already. And you might also have potentially, and this is rarer, I would say, the kind of really enthusiastic people that just want to introduce kind of new and cool things that they think are kind of fun to have. But so maybe this just pops up just in this module, and we might, that might be okay depending on kind of what's the learning curve for students to learn it, or what are they getting out of it, and is it worth them getting that out of it? But it might be nicer that they're thinking more in terms of things that are actually there, people are going to actually build their skills and their knowledge of over time. And so what we would love for the impact to eventually be, if we were going to have some kind of activity in the program design workshop, is that they will be thinking about technology as something to support active blended learning. So they might be thinking maybe they want to have some kind of signature technologies. They don't have to think what they are yet, but like they're going to be ones that maybe will recur across some of the modules of this program, or always be used. And they will be clearly understand what the purpose of the technology is that they're choosing. And they will be giving consideration to the support or the kind of learning curve involved in the tech mix that they're choosing. So this isn't something that they're going to think about in this workshop 1 with us. This is where they want them to get to eventually. But we want to start them on that journey towards thinking about these things. So we're thinking maybe we could put an activity where they're going to think about moving towards this direction, where they're going to have about 10-15 minutes in the workshop. So like if you think back to the slides that we showed you before with our other kind of prompts, which are, very, very much prompting them to have a discussion about it and come up with some things that they believe in, what would the activity be? So over to you. Please get together with your neighbors and have a chat about it. Have some post-it notes and paper if you want to scroll some things down. And I think we can have 15 minutes, probably that's more realistic than longer.
We've got half an hour.
Cool. But we want to report back as well.
Oh yeah,
Right?
yeah, 20 minutes. Yeah. Do you want more paper? Because that we put paper on these tables. We're very pleased to see that so many people came, but we weren't that optimistic. There's more paper on this table. Has the rest
scary
pad really. So let me grab 2 sheets from here. Okay, I'll take it to the table over there. Oh,
Which?
Oh, dear.
Thank you.
It's that one. Really. I mean, that's a short summary of it. Like not just accidentally.
The other half of it, obviously, as I've retired now, having been there and done all that, I don't want to jeopardize other people's conversations with my bitter experience. Thank you. Thanks very much for that. It's really interesting to see it and think, yeah, we did that. Yeah, we did that. Yeah, we did that. And yet, we didn't have a Leo at our institution to say they've done all that and let them get on with it. We still ended up being in the shadow of the linguists, the academic linguists who write papers and don't do anything digital. And so we weren't allowed to do the stuff that we wanted to do. I think actually, to be fair, since I've left, things have improved. That's because I'm not moaning all the time.
Or was it the pandemic?
Well, I left just as the pandemic sort of hit.
Yeah,
I
so
retired.
so
So
that
the pandemic probably, we've been
focused
the
minds,
things.
yeah.
We're doing all of these things. We have our signature technologies. We have our, we know how we do it, but we were just a language sector.
yeah.
And despite the fact that we outnumbered our colleagues, didn't have status.
Well.
So,
Yeah.
but they must have come round because, as I say,
They had no
since the
choice.
pandemic,
They had no choice.
They had to listen to what
Yeah.
was going on.
Yeah.
And then I'd get emails saying, what did you use for so and so? How did you do this?
Bye. Well, we can ask people at the end, as you said, 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. So that takes us to, so it's 5 past now. So that would take us to, that would give us 10 minutes. Then we could ask them to talk about what they're thinking on the matter. And then maybe if we had 5 minutes or so after that. We don't have anything. Yeah. Well, questions might come up, sort of, because we can ask, we ask them if they have any questions. And then they might have questions about ABC or chart.
So I think that's really, might help them
To think about.
know more about it in the first place. To ask
Yeah, but then you didn't really want to give them too much information to have to do. You want to see what it would ferment without having too many things to. Because if you present somebody with an idea and then say, now go and think of your own idea, you always go back to the idea you've just been told. And you try to pattern a new idea off the one that you've just heard. So it's that earwig that you can't get rid of. So I don't think it should be a problem.
Ideas and embed choice going forward.
Yeah.
Yes. So you could be having a whole variety of workshop different levels of experience. Is there any way that you can get them to do some sort of
Yeah.
Because if you're hitting people that haven't got any experience, it's really challenging, isn't it? To get them to understand, I guess, getting them to come to that.
Well, we're thinking that most of the people who have teaching roles will have will have modules that they're teaching now. So developing this new program is on top of their regular workload. So they are already using learning technologies in their modules. It's just that they probably haven't thought of how their use impacts on the rest of the program from a student perspective. And that's the shift in their thinking we're trying to get them to make.
That's what I'm saying, that if you can get them to experience it as a student themselves, the penny drops there.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could almost put this on.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Myra board or something.
Oh God, my report.
Sticky.
Yes.
Stuff like that. I don't know, I'm just thinking that way, they're learning by experience, that, aren't they? And that the pennies that would drop them in terms of students do that. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe I've listened to it.
No, I don't think so. I mean, we do run this workshop online if needs be, but
it's one work.
it's one workshop. We use Jamboard.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, same sort of thing. Yeah.
And
Because basically just to get them talking.
But we usually do it
In
on
person.
campus.
Yeah, if it's online, it has to be shorter. It can't be 3 hours.
We're all for doing stuff online, and actually if they're a brand new program team that they haven't even written the documentation of what that's their program about yet, that probably hardly know each other. It's like actually coming in and having some delicious institutional sandwiches and a chat, and then doing the workshop together, and all this can be quite a good kind of experience for forming their relationships and getting them to work as a team and all that. That it's harder to kind of, online always feels like a meeting.
More fun.
I just think that it's so much easier to put yourself in student's shoes when you've been a student and when you had to cope with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder how many have it, or how many have only had sad experiences, particularly.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that I'm getting in my head from what you're saying is trying to put academics in the students' shoes and to experience being in different modules and having different experiences in the learning environment online in the different modules, and finding it slightly confusing and inconsistent.
And seeing, assessments in one module or over here, and
Yeah.
the other module, those embedded within the changes and stuff. And it is
Yeah, but I'm not sure quite, because we need to give them that sense of confusion in like 5 minutes.
Yes.
And
Could you
maybe it's a video.
Could you like have it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or a problematic short type of course that you get them to enroll on, and they enroll through the whole process and they go through, and then they could use that as a critique, which is, when I enrolled on this, then I couldn't remember my number, and then I tried to log in, and then my email went there, I had to reset my password, and all that kind of stuff. And then I tried to download information from them, so that you couldn't get those.
Well, we don't really want them to get embroiled in worrying about things that they have no impact all over. The password stuff and getting lost in the library. Yeah, but things like sort of like some sort of techno enthusiasts who might have their students using blogs and have them using a wiki and have them using, and any number of, and needing to go on Twitter and create, sort of like, so people who are really enthusiastic and really want to be creative in their teaching, but the students are overwhelmed by the number of different technologies they have to get their heads around.
By trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
Tips, balanced.
Yeah. And
When you want to see this, including ways that they can submit an assignment.
yeah.
And they all do text-based assignment. Nobody does it.
That's another project that we're doing.
Yeah.
I'm involved
Yeah,
in
so-
assessment optionality research project with some other universities. So it's quite interesting. Sometimes the academics are more enthusiastic about it than the students are.
Sometimes the students just want to get it done.
Yeah.
But I think that that's also a kind of you don't necessarily want to like have the unknown thrust upon you, but it doesn't mean it's not good for you. So I sort of understand that they're like, I just want it to be simple and clear and easy, and that's the sort of message from students all the time. But and I think we all sympathize with that because we all want that in life. At the same time, that's not how the world is. You can't make the world.
Yeah, the students can come too if they have, sometimes they bring like their PhD or a master student along to, who's done a program, who's done or doing a program in their department that's not too dissimilar, or even if it is dissimilar, it doesn't really matter because they can still have useful insights because it's about bringing perspective outside of the academic zone.
Sometimes the groups are really small, especially for when they're in a really, really early stage. They might not have recruited a lot of the staff that will end up teaching the program. So they actually, you're like, where are all your colleagues? Oh, they don't exist yet.
Yeah, but we also encourage them to, in the meeting that we have, if they don't have many people who will actually be directly involved with the program, we encourage them to invite critical friends, so other programs that are currently running, see if you can get their program lead to come and join the fray, and sort of, because that person will have experience of running a program, and they'll say, well, when we were doing ours, we designed it this way, but actually when it hit the ground, that turned out to be a bit problematic. So I would recommend so it's just really getting them in the room because everybody's so busy. You can't count on people to meet in the corridor and have these conversations. There's no water cooler.
No, it's pretty much more to do.
Yeah.
So I think, when we started doing this, I thought these questions are a bit kind of simple. Like, surely they know all the answers to all these things. It's amazing how much it brings out.
Yeah.
And because they haven't really had those discussions properly, or they have one person's talked to another, but not as a whole group.
Yeah.
What time is it now?
1:15. Another.
If they want a few more minutes.
What time do we finish?
We finish at past.
They're quite enthusiastically discussing, I think.
Yeah, give us another 5 minutes. If we give it 5 minutes, then we can have feedback and questions, ideas, and if we've got time, we can discuss our ideas. I mean, they have a workshop running concurrently for the online people.
What do they? So maybe they have no
So-
intention of people attending the workshop.
I didn't get that impression. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think,
because they know, well, like,
Because
when we
the
received
talks,
the
yeah.
information, we didn't get told, remember, some people will be
Online.
attending online. So I thought maybe either there are none, or the online people we just assume that they're not really participating.
yeah. Because I thought
But if they
some
have
of the screening was,
online workshop to go to, that's
yeah,
probably there, just go to that.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
As long as they can.
yeah.
It might not be
Yeah.
as
And the presentation
good
is
as
being
how-
streamed, because they can watch.
just take what they can get.
So just.
Honestly, I have no idea what workshop
Yeah.
is good, but I thought everyone likes to talk about. Everyone likes to chat, don't they?
Chat with sticky notes.
Yeah. Actually, maybe your idea could work sort of, kind of like in Monopoly, you get a card and the card gives you a scenario. Your partner has stolen the money from the bank, you are now broke,
Yeah.
go directly to jail. So you could have a scenario sort of, you're a student, you've gone into your Moodle course.
Yeah.
The assessment is not where you thought it would be,
Yeah.
or you've got multiple types of submission, there's no information.
Yeah.
So,
Or you want to go to get a book from the library and you get told that it's on the third floor of the library, but you're a distance student, there's nowhere near the library.
yeah. Well, that's again something that the academic can't do much about, but.
Well, they would not tell them to go and get it, but
Yeah,
Well,
it should be, beyond, yeah, so issues like that are digital, sort of like in the planning of kind of what's the ethos of your approach to digital resource. Yeah.
how are you getting on?
Lots of discussion, very little notes.
That's very interesting discussion. Good. Okay, good.
You need us to deliver something back.
I mean, if possible. No pressure. How are you guys getting on?
Yeah.
Do you think we're mad?
I realise that I've seen you several times and not realised who you are.
Oh, what's that? Actually, yes, of course I know you as well on Twitter. It's that's why it's so hard to leave Twitter. It's so evil. But I don't want to not
No, I know.
see these people.
I know. It's difficult.
Not the people themselves, but their tweets. Sorry, I'm interrupting your conversation. How are you? Well, it's if it was easy, we would have done it. How are you guys getting on?
We're going off on lots of tangents.
Well, that's good. That's what workshops are for.
They're quite focused. I came and tried to disrupt them, but they got back on track.
Oh, amazing. Well, maybe we
Behind the
should.
mold, the paper.
This is good, isn't it? I like this open door. It's quite hot, isn't it?
Doesn't really help.
Nice,
Same temperature outside as in.
even probably warmer, but
Yeah,
at least the air moves a bit.
yeah.
And it's kind of a fun bar.
Make them report back. Yeah, it's really
But I think we.
Great, you're keeping active. What a lie. Yeah, we've got 8 minutes left of the workshop.
Well, we better.
Yeah.
Okay, we better have our reporting back wrap up time. so that we don't run out of time. I love that you've all been discussing so actively. So it wasn't a completely meaningless question that we asked you. We were like, will they even understand what we mean? Maybe this group, would you like to tell us a bit about your discussion? Yeah.
So we're talking about it, and there was a little bit of biasness around blended learning. But sort of like look at the conversation, the way it went is that we got to the point of firstly asking any program people who came to require blended learning. So number one is that, is the program that you wanted to deliver, does it lend itself to be blended? Because although blended learning is something and very much a buzzword and something that everybody's doing, blended doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be blended. Sometimes it could possibly be that it does just lend itself to face-to-face. Sometimes it could solely be online. Sometimes it doesn't have to be blended. And that's where you start looking at asking specific questions around the activities of students and the activities of the academics, and looking at activities that are taking place, and does that lend itself to blended? Is it possible? And as learning technicians, possibly facilitating that conversation around that, because as mentioned, sometimes you may turn around and say, an activity from an academics point of view is that, oh, well, that's not something that can be done in blended. And then it's from a learning technician's point of view, you start feeding the thought process of, can it not be done blended? Have you maybe thought about this? Have you maybe thought about that? And a really good example used was something like the randomization of mathematical questions, for example. Done face-to-face, that's almost it can be done, but very difficult to do. But from an online perspective, randomization of questions and things is very easy to do and done quite well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking at contextual, looking at subjects, looking at things like that can lend itself. I think from an overall perspective, one of the things that we also spoke about is that through the pandemic, obviously we were forced to move online. And we obviously, during that period of being online, we realized some benefits and some pitfalls, and hence why blended has come about from that. And from my own experience, and some other people at the desk as well, we're talking about is that one of the most successful things that we've used is through the classroom. And using that being a mechanism of facilitating blended learning, but at the same time, my own personal opinion is that sometimes we seem to be shoehorning blended into areas that isn't really necessary, and possibly looking from a program point of view, listening to some of the students this morning, is that listening to students' expectations about the social expectations about coming to learning institutions, and maybe looking at it from a program point of view over a longer period of time, looking at it in the yearly segregation rather than a single year. So, for example, first year students, potentially giving them a more on-site experience to build those relationships, to build those social interactions, and then sort of maybe minimizing that over their yearly interactions, that they can maintain those social aspects, but through an online format.
Sounds like a very interesting conversation, and really some great points coming out of it. Did that lead you to have any idea on like what would be the activity in our workshop?
In your work, without a problem, I think this is part of the problem. Is I was hoping to come to the session because I am, and please speak to yourself. Anything different for myself, I was hoping to come to the session to find alternatives to a flipped classroom, because flipped classroom works so well for what we do. Is that I was hoping to maybe come find some inspiration about sort of what other things are. Maybe some of the other groups will come up with some of that inspiration, or possibly I can maybe pick your brains later on.
Yeah.
Or possibly even at the dinner tonight, just to find out a little bit more about sort of what those possibilities are, or what the other options are around that.
But if you think about, and I'm not going to hold my time here, the argument they haven't talked yet. More we start talking about activity before the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing really is to let the program team members to, based on the priority, the vision about earlier, 45 minutes, and to list the student tasks or activities the student need to do in order to achieve the vision
Vision.
and priority. So to list all these activities first, right? And then we want them to say, look, you've got all the activities listed, and you identify one by one which one is best putting online or offline from their point of view. And then after the first stage, then the learning technologists, other team members, they would chip in and say, look, actually, is really you think this is the best for online? The second thing about that, then we provide example. If they identify, all right, this assessment task, just one example. Can we do offline because actually online, the randomized question is much better. They didn't know that. So this will make them realize actually they learn something and then guide them to that direction. But have to come up from them first, and then we can work together to draw a conclusion together. So that's where we go from.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's remove this group. You wrote on some post-its, I can see them there.
About thinking about that features somewhere in there, but we did start out actually with a thought about we need to do something to set kind of policy set for the program, because they haven't got an idea what they're doing, they don't know how they're going to do it, they don't know how they're going to assess it, so they're not coming very much. So all we can really do is start thinking about what flavors and what tools, what recipes they're going to do. And that got us thinking about signature. So at that point, I'll pass on. Next person.
Well executed.
If you want to stick with the music, no one.
Thank you. I like.
Started thinking of program level policies, the idea of consistency of student experience, and we don't want to be teaching students how to meet students just for the sake of it. We don't want one module that's just way out of whack with everything else. We want a consistent experience.
And we don't want it to just be Turnitin. Sorry, Turnitin.
But we do want to like have cohesive experience. The students can say, okay, I know I can just go on with the content and not say, well, what's this tool, what's the thing I meant to be doing. So that's the idea of hats, I think, is probably the greatest single post-it note in history. It just says hats, that's all it says. The idea that we need to, ideally we have students or prospective students or a reasonable sample of people who could possibly be prospective students in the room at this point. So we could be like, okay, what are your expectations? What are the things you would like? What are the things? And obviously it's really different for every team, but start bringing a student voice in at that point and say, well, actually, no, I prefer not to use in drills, if that's okay, because it's horrible, invasive software that steals the copyright in my work and reuses it for commercial. For instance.
For instance.
The idea of preferences. So I think I'll handle that.
Thank you very much for that question. Yeah, so we're talking about preferences. We were thinking about a group of people in a room that didn't know the content or the assessment that they were going to be designing activities for. And therefore, what we needed to do was to help them have a series of tips and tricks and toolkits up their sleeves, so that when they did have an idea of what the content and the assessment was going to be, they got some ideas in mind. But what we thought we should do as the activity was some kind of devil's advocate approach, where we got people to think about the things that they actually would be comfortable with and they would want to do, but then challenge them to think of what they would do as an alternative if that was completely off the table.
Oh, I like it.
so that they have to put themselves into another person's shoes. So they're thinking back to hats, hats and shoes. So yeah.
Any gloves?
Yeah, let's pass the baton, because we also talked a bit about teaching philosophies and compared to hand back. Thank you. Yeah, so it was that idea of you've got the teaching approaches, but there's also the teaching perspectives. We talked a bit about perhaps 5 teaching perspectives, and actually understanding what are the predominant perspectives in that program team, and then actually how could you design learning intentionally that fitted in both perspectives, and back to the idea of flipping it, using this what you've got there, the impact, almost like if you don't do the impact assessment in tools, you could almost use that as an impact assessment then for those approaches. But also the other key thing about graduate attributes is how those blended learning activities actually support development of like sort of digital graduate attributes, critical thinking, etc. as well.
Love it. Thank you very much. You guys?
That's through really quickly. We haven't got a lot of time. So our 15 minutes, we probably tried to squish an hour of activity into it. But we want to do a warm up of kind of what technology tools have been used and how have they changed over the last 10 years. So,
in your life.
so things around shopping and entertainment media, that kind of thing. So just finding out about people's experiences. Then we said we had to consider the fact that even if it's a new program, we're probably drawing in modules that exist already, and we might not be able to radically change those. So what activity happens in those? What tools are they already using, and how might that impact the things that we're doing? We've then very vaguely got some kind of card sorting activity or app thing that's going on in the middle.
Oh, good.
So yeah.
That will make sense in a minute.
And so we were then thinking about universal design for learning and sort of the multiple modes of engagement and action, expression and representation, and how technology might be fitting into that. We were then thinking about skills development and what expectations there are for that. So whether you're working with any external bodies, so for example, if you're in health sciences courses, do you have to do something that meets with the nursing and midwifery council's requirements and so on? Okay, that one we covered. And we also wanted to reflect on the digital skills that students need, and so whether we're able to do anything more authentic about developing their skills and what tools we might choose. I can see that Jim's got another post-it note there about wider participation.
Just a couple of observations. I think one of the relations to what this group was saying is that idea that we should perhaps look for opportunities to stretch students and to develop their skills depending on what outcomes we're looking for. So doing something different to others and it not being consistent isn't necessarily a problem as long as that's planned. And it's developmental, and that's what you want. We said that some programs wouldn't be interested in that. But then just coming back to this point that was made over here, and that is that I think we should mention something that cropped up right at the beginning of your presentation, widening participation and then inclusivity. So that sometimes if we listen to our existing students who were great this morning, and we listen to our existing experiences, then it's very we're only going to get what we've always done. And so therefore we need to try and open up the conversation to think about widening participation and inclusivity. And of course, blended learning has a lot to offer there. So that might be something we should feed in and encourage a discussion about.
I think we have to be careful around the definition of blended learning, because for us, we look at things in terms of synchronous and asynchronous activities, and they could be online, offline, in person or not. There's like the high flex stuff with just trying to suss and work out. So I think there's combination of different things, and we just need to be careful how we use blended learning as a term, and the because of what's happening with the change of technologies and expectations of our students, actually it's probably more around the variety of different activities in the places where students need them at the time that they are receptive to what those lessons might be.
Excellent summation. Thank you very much. That was amazing.
Thank you.
We really appreciate all your thoughts, and we'll go away and allow our minds to be boggled a bit more now.
Can I just ask a quick,
Yeah.
we've probably not have time, but do you ever apply this model or these ideas to existing programs?
Yes.
We do work with existing programs, but they typically will come along with a particular aspect that they're looking to do some kind of review work on. So they already have identified something that they want to enhance or change, or they think there's an issue. And we normally tend to do maybe more of the ABC style work with them, because they have an existing program that's already made, so they're not starting from nothing.
So ABC. Thanks.
But it also depends on the issues that they're having with the existing program. Is it that recruitment has fallen off a precipice? Because then they may need to go back to brass tacks. It could even be in the title of the program. Nobody's Googling it. So, they do need to re-ask the questions that they thought were answered.
Thank you all very much.